What's up, guys? It's Toad back again. Another day, back to the grind. 3-1 yesterday. College football went 1-3 over the weekend, which was not good. And all three losses were within one score of being a win, so that's great. Jacksonville State had a bad start to their game yesterday, and they wound up still almost getting there. I didn't really watch the game, but I know there were some crazy endings in college football yesterday. I don't know what was going on there. You had the Alabama-Auburn game where Alabama converted, like a 4th and 31 to score a touchdown to win that game, and then it looked like Auburn had thrown a pick six on the final play or something, and something, I don't know what happened there, but it was ruled that play didn't happen, or I don't know. You guys could inform me in the comments. I don't know what happened with that, but that pick six not counting actually informed the I don't know. I think it informed some of the teasers or something, at least, because of course Auburn covered the spread either way because they were like a 2-touchdown underdog. But some wild stuff there. And then I guess the Oklahoma State BYU ending was crazy as well. Something, I don't know what happened there. BYU, I think, almost was able to pull off the upset there, and they lost on like a fumble that might have actually been an incomplete pass. I don't know. I didn't see it. I'll have to go watch these replays or something. I watched the replay of the Alabama one, the 4th and 31 conversion. Yeah, that was completely insane. But yeah, moving on from all of that, the NHL and NBA both got there yesterday, so that was good. Wait, did I say 3? Yeah, 3-1 because Kentucky in college football also got there. So yeah, that was good. Kentucky was a winner, pretty much wire to wire, and they won outright as the underdogs. So that was my one winning college football play. So yeah, there you go. That was good. And then, NBA, Utah Jazz made a nice, huge comeback and won. And then we had the Arizona Coyotes blanking the Vegas Knights. A 2-0 win is a pretty substantial underdog. Got to like that. And I have another substantial underdog in hockey today. So let's move to it. Also, it is NFL Sunday, of course. So I do have my NFL video up. I have 3 plays today. And I will mention one thing I forgot to mention in the Chargers play is also that there's also like a syllogistic angle to that play as well, where bettors are going to look and see that the Ravens destroyed the Detroit Lions and the Lions beat the Chargers. So they're going to look at that and think, well, if that's the case, then of course the Ravens are going to win by at least 3.5 or whatever against the Chargers, right? If they beat the Lions, who beat the Chargers? So that's another angle, a little bit of angle there that like recreational bettors are going to maybe potentially look at the game that way because those were all recent games. They look at like common opponents like that, and that's just another reason why I like the Chargers there. It's a little added extra reason to be on the Chargers there, I would say. So that's what I like there. You can go check out those plays in my NFL video. Cincinnati Bengals, Chargers, and what else am I on? I don't even remember. Buffalo Bills. Yeah, I like all 3 of those plays a lot, actually. I think they're all strong. Let's go to today's slate, and I actually have a play in college basketball. It's rare, baby. I'm actually making one play in college basketball, and this is going to be on Bellarmine. What am I doing here? Bellarmine, who the hell are they? They're a team that moved up to Division I pretty recently, and I think they're in the Atlantic Sun. They're kind of an under-the-radar team, I would say, because in their first season, I think in D1, I think they actually won their conference, but they were ineligible for postseason because just like I talk about with college football, when you move up to the new division, there's like a hiatus period where you can't make like postseason. You can't like win your conference, and you can't win like an auto bid into the tournament. You can't play in the tournament. So like that was the case with Bellarmine. I think there was one year they had maybe 2 years ago where I think they won their conference basically, but they were ineligible to make the tournament. So like Jacksonville State or some other team like defaulted into it. There was something crazy going on. There was some weird motivational angles at the end of the season there where you could like play on Bellarmine because like they were playing their last game or something, whereas the other team was already in the final, regardless of the outcome of the championship game. It happened in one of the other, in like the Northeastern Conference. There was a weird situation like that too with one of those teams. I can't even remember. But yeah, today, Bellarmine, they're a little bit of a different team that they were then, but they're up against West Virginia. There are a couple reasons I like this. This line, it looks like it's falling from 9.5 to 8.5. 9.5 look like they're still out there. I saw numbers that were kind of still a wide range, and it looks like I saw some site indicating that it actually opened at 10.5. I don't know about that, but I got the 9.5. It looks like 9.5s are still around. On the Bellarmine side, as an underdog, people are going to look at this. Obviously, they have no idea who Bellarmine is. They know who West Virginia is, and they know that they're a team that's like typically pretty good in college basketball. They were in the tournament last year. Probably should have won that first game in the tournament last year. So the public, if they look at this game, they're only going to want to play West Virginia. And the line looks a little bit small. Like, why are they only laying like under double digits against this Bellarmine team? Who the hell are they? West Virginia, so they're in a bad spot. They're coming off a game where they almost beat Virginia, which would have been a big upset win. They were like a 9.5-point underdog in that one. In Virginia, a named team. Everybody knows they're good. They've been one of the like class teams in college basketball over the last I don't know, even like decade or so. They're not quite as good this year, maybe, but they're definitely a good team. They're in the rankings. That was a big game. It was a low scoring, like kind of physical battle, and West Virginia was, I think, losing by double digits early, made a big comeback, had the lead in the second half, and then wound up losing that game by 2. And that was 4 days ago. So that was their last game they played. Then they had to go into the holiday break. So they had Thanksgiving and stuff like that. So I think this is all going to be kind of a distraction. The game against Virginia was actually in a tournament in Fort Myers. They were in one of those early season tournaments there. So now after that, this is kind of like a return home spot now. And you have Thanksgiving getting in the way. So these guys, like, they might not all be from West Virginia. Like, who knows? They might have been going back home to various places. Now they all have, like, so it's really like they don't actually have, like, 4 days to prepare for this game. They really might only have, like, a couple, maybe. And these guys, you know, they might have been like in different places in the country for Thanksgiving with their families and whatever. Now they have to come back. They come home and they have to play this Bellarmine team, and they're coming off that huge Virginia game. Are they really going to be that focused for Bellarmine? My guess would be possibly not, which is why I'm on it. And they do have a game against a bigger conference team next as well. West Virginia plays St. John's next, who, even though they're not really that good, they are still a Big East team. So I think West Virginia might not come totally focused here. They might look past the Bellarmine team. And the other thing I like about this is that when you're early in the season like this, you can also look for angles where you have a team where they have a lot of returning starters. That is Bellarmine here. Bellarmine has 4 returning starters out of the 5 that they had last year, where they were a team that made like the quarterfinals in their conference last year. They were nearly like a 500 team, but these guys have experience all playing with each other at this point. So 4 of their guys are returning starters from that team last year. The 5th starter they have, I think, was like their 6th man last year, or was one of the guys off the bench. So like all the guys that are in their starting lineup are returning players from last year. Whereas West Virginia, even though, yeah, they've had some games now to get under their belt, West Virginia, I believe, has no returning starters from last year's team. I think they've had a complete turnover because of the transfer portal. I think they had 2 guys from their starting lineup last year graduate, and another 2 of them transferred out. So they have no guys left from that team, or I think 3 of them might have graduated, which is crazy. So they have a completely new lineup. So the Bellarmine team is actually a team that has more experience playing with each other. So that might be have a little bit of an added effect there on the game's outcome. So that's what I like here. I like Bellarmine plus the points, plus I don't know, whatever I said. I think I got 9.5. Bellarmine, they have an extra day off compared to what West Virginia had, so maybe that's like a little bit of extra advantage there as well. And they're not coming off of a big game or anything, I don't think. So I like the spot a lot better for Bellarmine. Neither of these teams have really good records so far, so there is that. I don't know, that aspect of it can kind of be thrown out the window. I think everybody knows West Virginia is certainly the better team. Yeah, Bellarmine's last game was the game against Midway, who I think is probably a D2 team. So it's really just kind of a tune-up game for them where they won easily. So I don't know if I'd say that was a momentum starter or anything, because they went into the holiday break after that, but still they haven't had to expend a lot of efforts. I think they've been able to prepare. They've had a lot of time to prepare for this game against West Virginia. They're starting a road trip here with, where they play a couple of big teams, West Virginia and Louisville. So I think, you're playing a big team. I think you're going to go focus. You're going to want to show up and play well. I like it. I like Bellarmine. And West Virginia, I think they're in a more distracted and kind of like a hangover spot from that Virginia game. So that's what I like in college basketball. NHL, there's a small slate, and I was almost ready to say I'm not going to play anything. in the slate here because I was looking. Well, first of all, I was looking to go against the Detroit Red Wings because they just had a monster win over the Boston Bruins 2 days ago. But then you look at this and you say, well, they're playing Minnesota, and Minnesota just had a big game as well where they lost by 1 to Colorado in a tough matchup there, a tough game. So both teams, unfortunately, are in go-against spots in that game. So I just kind of have to stay away, although I think Detroit is still in the bigger go-against spot. And Minnesota's flipped from a plus 107 dog to a minus 115 road favorite. And people might look at that and think that that line's like a little bit sus, maybe. Like, why is Minnesota 5-9-4 team? How are they possibly a road favorite against Detroit? Like, that doesn't look right. So that aspect of it, I still kind of would lean that way. Because you have the team with the way worse record. Detroit's 10-6-3 or whatever. How could the team with the way worse record be a favorite on the road? The odds makers are telling you Minnesota is actually the better team, and Detroit just beat Boston. So, like, people are going to want to be on Detroit, I would imagine. But I would lean slightly to Minnesota there, but I can't do it because they're also in that hangover spot, I think, after a tough game against the Avs. The line looks like it has flipped the favor to Minnesota. Like I said, odds makers telling you they're actually the better team, which is wild, pretty crazy to think about. And Minnesota's got 58% of the tickets on them, but 64% of the cash on Detroit. I don't know if I buy those numbers because the line movement has gone against where it looks like the cash discrepancy is. So I'm not sure I completely buy that aspect of it. But that's the way I look at that. And then the play that I have in the NHL, it was the last game I looked at. It's the last game of the night on the slate, on the board. I was looking, I'm like, there's no way I'm going to play this. I'm not going to play the Anaheim-Edmonton game when Edmonton's up from minus 250 favorite to a minus 275 favorite. They have 76% of the cash and tickets on them, though. So it looks like they've gone up, and they're a huge favorite. They're a public favorite. But you look at that, and it looks like it's a play that I might not want to be going against Edmonton because they have such a bad record right now, 6-12-1. Like, how are they such a big favorite over a team that has a little bit better of a record than that? Anaheim 9-11-0. But I think people do still know, like, Edmonton. I mean, they have kind of the name guys on the team. Like, they got McDavid. They got some of these big players. They still have him, right? They got a bunch of like good scorers on that team. So I still think they attract some of the public action and like the public sentiment. Like, they still know that that this team is like the better team, right? So I think the public does still know that. So it looks like they are still on the Edmonton side there. But I just think it's a bad spot for Edmonton. So even though Edmonton has not been playing the best, they're returning from a long road trip. So this is why I like this play. Let's look at it here. They just had a 4-game road trip that took them to Florida and the East Coast, where they lost 3 out of 4 and finally won in blowout fashion 5-0 over Washington to cap the road trip. So they're returning home from a road trip with only 1 day off. And they had, if they were doing Thanksgiving stuff, they would have had to have done that kind of in the middle of that whole thing because they were out on the road during it. So I don't know if that might add to the distraction a little bit, where maybe they come home and they want to see family briefly and stuff like that. And they have all that to do with only 1 day to turn around and then play the Anaheim Ducks, who are also a team with a losing record. You might not be totally focused on that, man. Even though you did lose the first 3 of the games on that road trip and you won that last one, but you come home, you don't have much time to turn around and play this. You might be distracted with the return home, all the holiday stuff that you have to get done, that you have to do, that you might have missed while you're on the road there still. And who do you have up next? You have the Vegas Knights up next, and then you have Winnipeg after that. So you have a couple of pretty big games coming up, a bigger opponent. So it's possible that even if you do have a losing record like this, you might look past Anaheim a little bit, man. You might be distracted a little bit. So that's the way I'm going here. I'm going to be on the Anaheim Ducks, and I'm taking the puck line in this one. And if you look at the Ducks, what's their schedule looking like? They're on a massive losing streak. So they had a winning record, but now I think people are not going to want anything to do with them. Like Edmonton, they haven't been playing that well either, but at least they've looked like they've been able to turn it around a little bit. They won their last game like really easily against a not horrible team in the Washington Capitals. Anaheim has lost 5 games in a row. and 4 of them were at home. So that's not looking very good for Anaheim, but it was kind of a tough schedule. I mean, they had lost in blowout fashion to the Avs, but the Avs are good on the road. They came home with 1 day to turn around, even though it was only a 2-game road trip. They still had to return to the West Coast. They lost a close one to Florida, lost to St. Louis, who's not playing badly, lost a close one to Montreal, which that's probably the worst loss out of all of them, then lost to the Kings. Kings are also pretty good. Now, if you're the Ducks, you also only have 1 day off, but you were at home for Thanksgiving and stuff. You've been able to be with family. You've been able to do that stuff. Now you get to put that past you and you get to go on the road. So I think starting the road trip and trying to break that losing momentum you had where you had a horrible homestand and lost every game at home, that's a positive for the Ducks. I think you're going to be focused. You got to do something here, man, when you're losing all these games in a row. I think they're going to be focused on Edmonton here. I like it. That's the handicap there. Edmonton's returning home from a road trip, and Anaheim is starting, only a 2-game road trip, but playing a first game out on the road, trying to break a really bad homestand. So I think it's a positive spot for Anaheim and a negative spot for Edmonton. So that's what I like there, and it's a huge, huge number on this one. So I took Anaheim on the puck line plus 1.5 goals, which, of course, as you know, I did with the Arizona Coyotes last night too, and they won outright. But I'm certainly happy about that, even though, I put a bunch of it on the puck line. But Anaheim on the puck line is a cheaper price here. I got them at plus 1.5 goals, minus 102. So they're such a big underdog that you don't even have to lay the full 110 vig on the puck line. So that's what I'm doing. Puck line plus 1.5 goals, minus 102. And then I sprinkled a little bit on the money line, plus 235. Big ass money line there. So Anaheim Ducks as a huge dog there. Play the puck line. That's what I'm doing. And then in the NBA, we go over to this slate here. What do we got going on here? I think I had one other maybe lean here. I think I would say I probably lean against the Denver Nuggets a little bit just because they're returning home from a road trip, a long road trip, and it was a bad road trip where they only won 1 out of 5 games, and the only win that they had was against the Detroit Pistons, and they barely won that game. So it's like, what's happening with the Nuggets? So people are going to think that the return home, they're going to be able to turn it around. I think that that's not the case when you have a return home from a road trip. I always say it's a pretty negative spot there. They got San Antonio coming in. I don't know how focused you're going to be on a San Antonio. Even if you're losing a bunch of games, San Antonio has been losing everything. But the one thing that kind of keeps me off of this a little bit is that San Antonio just played a couple of tough games in a row where they played the Clippers pretty close and played the Warriors pretty close. So even though, the Spurs probably are the way to look here, it's tough to actually do it when it's like a mismatch like this. And maybe Denver, just because they've been losing so much, maybe they will bring some focus. But I lean a little bit to the Spurs in that one just because it's the return home aspect of it for the Nuggets, who are down from a 12.5-point favorite to a 12-point favorite, even though these percentages I'm looking at here make it look like they have 91% of the tickets, but only 87% of the cash. So I don't know about that. But that's probably the only lean that I would have here. I might lean against the Nets a little bit. I don't see percentages on that one yet, but they're sitting at a 3.5-point favorite, and they just won yesterday in blowout fashion against the Heat, whereas the Bulls, I think, had the day off, and the Bulls are coming off some loss. I think it might have been the Oklahoma City loss that I lost on. I don't know. It was after that. They lost to the Raptors too, so the Bulls need to turn it around, and that line almost looks a little bit suspicious, I would actually say, because the Nets aren't laying that many points. It almost kind of looks too easy after they beat the Heat. And the Bulls, they definitely need a win of some kind to try to turn that around. So I do lean to the Bulls there slightly because the Nets are on the back-to-back and they're coming off that big win. But it's a game I had mentioned yesterday that I leaned the Nets because the Heat were in a bad spot, and the Heat were in a back-to-back, and they were coming off, something, the Knicks game, and they had the Bucks up next. But the reason why, and I should have known this. This is why the line kept going up and up and up on Brooklyn. It went up through 5, I think 5.5. And I don't know where it actually wound up, but it was because the Heat actually benched Jimmy Butler and Adebayo for that game. It was a rest spot where they're Spoelstra, whoever they have for a coach there. I think he's still there. He was doing the Greg Popovich thing and just saying, we're in a back-to-back. We're just going to rest our guys and just see what happens, basically, and have our guys ready for the bigger game here. So that's what the Heat did yesterday, which kind of also explains why they lost so badly to Brooklyn. But because the Heat were resting those many guys and the line was getting so out of control on Brooklyn, I thought that the value was kind of gone on Brooklyn because it was starting to kind of overreact to those guys being out, almost like kind of an injured player theory type of situation. But it was still a bad spot for the Heat. So I still The lean was still kind of on Brooklyn there a little bit, and Brooklyn did blow them out, but that's why I was not on that game, because that was a tough one to handicap for sure. And the actual play, you know how I handicap, man. You know exactly what I'm going to be on here. This is a play I was looking at for like 2 days now. I'm going to be on this game. I'm fading the Orlando Magic, man. It's time for the Magic to fade. The Magic, something's got to give on the Orlando Magic, man. They're not this good, right? They're laying 7.5 now, at home. They're up from 7 to 7.5. They have 79% of the tickets, but 77% of the cash. So it does look like there was a little bit of cash discrepancy on the Magic, who are a big public home favorite now. Who would think this? The Magic would be leading their division over the Heat, looking like they can they're just beating the best teams in basketball right now. What? Like, really? Like, is Orlando one of the top teams in basketball right now? I'm still not convinced that Orlando should be a 7.5-point favorite against any team in the NBA, really. I'm not convinced yet. Consider me skeptical, and they're in a bad spot here, because now they're coming off. Not only did they beat Denver, the returning champions, on Wednesday, they turned around after that, and they absolutely annihilated the Boston Celtics, and they were losing badly early in that game. The Celtics, I think, were winning by double digits and scored like 30 in the first quarter. The Celtics looked like they were going to run away with that game early. The Celtics were beating them by double digits. And then all of a sudden, I don't know what happened, but the Orlando just absolutely trounced them in the rest of the game. Just absolutely crazy. They wound up winning that game by a lot, by 17 points or something. So you just beat the returning champs in Denver. You beat one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference, the team that probably should have been the Eastern representative in the finals last year, the Celtics. You're coming off that. Like, you can't look any better than you do right now, man. If you're the Orlando Magic, I think the stock has gone too high. This is going to be a sell high on the Magic. They've won 6 straight games now. I'm going to step in front of that train, man. Finally, the Magic train. They only have 1 day off here. Now they have the Charlotte Hornets coming to their town after they're sitting there riding high off of beating Denver and Boston at home. Oh, here come the Hornets. Are they really going to pay that much attention to the Charlotte Hornets? Probably not. And the Hornets are a team I went against, of course, in their previous game, because they were in a bad spot. I thought it was a zigzag type of spot where they were playing a second straight game. Or the Hornets had just beaten the Celtics. Sorry, my apologies. The Hornets had just beaten the Celtics, just like the Magic have just done now. So the Hornets were coming off a game where they just beaten the Celtics. I went against them, and I played the Washington Wizards. They had played a home and home against the Wizards actually earlier in the season. So that's what I was thinking of, where they'd split 1-1, and the road team had won each of those games. So, and the Hornets were losing that entire game against Washington. They were losing by 19, I think, in the third or fourth quarter in that one. And somehow they wound up winning the game and almost covering. Luckily for me, Washington still wound up covering that. But, I mean, it should not have required luck. Like, Washington should have not only covered, won that game outright. I'm still salty I didn't get the money line sprinkled to cash on that one, because that was in the bag for Washington. But either way, that was a bad game for the Charlotte Hornets. They're coming off that game now. They have extra days to prepare for this. They haven't played since Wednesday. So, whereas Orlando only has 1 day off, Charlotte has 3 days off, and they're coming off, even though, yeah, you might say that might disrupt their like win streak there, but maybe. But when you have that much time off now, and that previous game you actually didn't play well, even though, yeah, you won, you kind of escaped. Like, you didn't play that well in that game. You were getting blown out by the Washington Wizards, who might be the worst team in basketball. So I think that's going to cause them to focus. I think they're going to be prepared for this. They see what Orlando's been doing. They know, what Orlando's record is. Orlando's leading their division now. I think they're going to show up focused for this, whereas Orlando is in a huge, huge letdown spot after just such a monster win. They couldn't look any better than they do right now. So that's the play. Charlotte Hornets plus 7.5. We're doing that. That's a Toad classic right there. So the 3 plays I'm adding here, well, you can go check out my NFL card, of course, where I am on the Cincinnati Bengals plus 2.5, Buffalo Bills plus 3.5, and what else am I on? The LA Chargers plus 3.5. It's a packed day today, man. You can go watch my video on that. You can see those explanations, the breakdowns on those plays. And I think I talked about at least 1 or 2 other NFL games that are today, even though I was wrong about all the Turkey Day games. So fuck that. But we get the losing out of the way so that the good plays are the ones that I'm actually playing and actually putting money on. All right, let's go. So we got those, and then the plays for today in the other sports are Bellarmine in college basketball plus 9.5. In hockey, Anaheim Ducks plus 1.5 pucks. plus 1.5 goals on the puck line at minus 102. A little bit of a money line sprinkle at plus 235, and the Charlotte Hornets in the NBA plus 7.5. Let's do it, man. Let's keep this train rolling. I've won. Skipping the Turkey Day because Thanksgiving I didn't actually have any plays, so skipping that entirely. I think I've won 13 out of the last 17 days or 14 out of the last 18, something like that. I'm rolling. I want to keep this train rolling. So hopefully we get another win here. There's a lot that could go wrong today, but a lot that could go right. With what do I have? 6, 7 plays on the board, whatever it is. Let's get it, man. Have a good day. NFL Sunday, baby. Peace.